Hello, everybody, and welcome to R&R, the new video segments.
I'm Ray.
And I'm Ray. And this is exciting. It's a video segment. This is what our faces look like. Now everybody who knows us will know that it's us. And I know it doesn't sound great, so hopefully we'll be able to get some microphones soon.
Yeah, we gotta start somewhere, and we figured that this would be a good start. I mean, kind of make up for not having an episode on Monday because of the 4th of July.
Yeah, the 4th of July. We were gonna post one on Tuesday, but then we gave up.
We had too many plans going on.
We were tired. So, what I think we believe we're going to talk about this time, since it's important and you're finally seeing our faces, is BPD and relationships and how that intertwines with each other.
Very hard to navigate relationships of any kind when you have mental illnesses, especially ones that kind of ravage your emotions.
Yeah, BPD is like bipolar but faster. And
it really is.
It's just fast bipolar, and it's hard because there's this aspect of favorite personing, and you would think like, oh, my child would be my favorite person, or oh, my parents would. It's normally the person you're with, and when you have BPD,
you can favorite person your friends though.
Yeah, but
you definitely can.
That's not as common.
It's not as common, and usually people who have BPD can manage favorite personing a friend. But when it comes to your favorite person being the person that you're with, it gets very difficult because they don't understand your feelings or your obsessions, and it's like, God, I barely understand them too, man.
Yeah, and yeah, I don't know. I think it's especially hard when you live with them.
Oh yeah, because then you can't just calm down. Yeah. You don't have a space that's your own that you can just sit there and calm down and be like, I'm home, this is my safe space, I can decompress. It makes it so much harder to walk away from the situation, and with BPD your emotions are heightened, and you need to have that moment to walk away.
Yeah, there's like really no space that's yours because you feel like you filled your whole house
with them,
with that person,
because they're your favorite person.
And you know what's horrible is that people who have BPD, they tend to pick narcissists.
Unfortunately,
because a lot of narcissism and BPD kind of clicks together, but different. A narcissist doesn't care what they're doing, and someone who has BPD cares too much.
Yeah. That's why narcissists in particular like us so much, is because we sort of we sort of have this problem where we can't see outside of ourselves. When we have a favorite person, that's our favorite person, and we will do whatever we have to do to make them happy, that we think will make them happy. We just try to be their everything to them, and in that they love it. Yeah. Because all of the focus is
they
on
feed off of that.
them.
That's the whole point of narcissism.
Yep.
Yeah. We just feed, and then when it's too late, it's too late. I recently had a friend, who, if you're watching, hi, you'll know who you are. She also has BPD, and she also went through a breakup, and it was very difficult, and the narcissist did horrible things. But then, in the moment, you realize. In the moment you think it's okay, but then once it's over, that's when you're like, oh, now that I'm saying it out loud, I sound psychotic. And
it's because they groom you.
Yeah.
And you get stuck in a pattern with them that you can't escape.
Yeah, it's I don't really know how really to describe it.
It's something that's very hard.
Well, as you said earlier, you said that all of our lives are in circles, they're in cycles, and BPD is a really fast circle.
Yep. Actually, before I learned that I had BPD, I struggled for a while trying to realize what was going on with me. And for a minute, I thought that I was bipolar, and the only one that fit the closest was rapid cycling bipolar, which is literally fast bipolar.
A lot of people who have BPD get misdiagnosed as manic depressive.
Yep.
Which I was told that it's bipolar, but then I was also told it's not bipolar. So I am unsure.
It gets confusing.
I am unsure if it is. So, you know, if you have bipolar, please inform us, let us know. If you are a manic depressant, let us know if there is a difference. If there's not, we're not good at that. Even though I was diagnosed as manic. I was diagnosed as manic bipolar when I was in the 5th grade.
That is a really hard thing to be diagnosed with.
Yeah.
So early on.
Yeah, in the same vein of talking about BPD and mental health, I actually had a therapist who worked at the school, and oh boy, was she fun. She really was. Me and my friend at the time, we'll call her Pebbles. We'll call her Pebbles.
Oh my god. Okay.
She had the same therapist at the same time, and we were the same age, just in different classes.
Gotcha.
Or were we in the same class? I don't remember. I think we were in different classes. But we had the same therapist, and the therapist had promised us that if we were good, that she would take both of us at the same time to Sherry's.
Aw, that's so sweet.
Which is a breakfast restaurant here, and we were not good. We went, but we were not good while we were there. She had told us to sit down multiple times. We were literally, I remember we bounced on the seats.
She probably regretted it so much.
Yep. She wasn't our therapist after that.
Oh.
Because we were bouncing off the. Why would you take two kids who are autistic and have ADHD and like all these other issues, and as far as you know, manic depressive, to a restaurant in the middle of the school day?
Yeah.
That's dumb. So we're there, we're bouncing off the chairs, and she was like, if you don't sit down, I will not get you guys ice cream. We didn't sit down. And she gave us ice cream.
Yep.
So she fed into us being like, yep, we are going to be like this for the rest of our lives. And we pretty much are.
Yep. And you know, speaking on sort of having multiple diagnoses, right? I have a plethora, I mean, and you do too, but the biggest ones are the ones that we talk about the most. But I'm actually also diagnosed with OCD, which we haven't talked about a lot, and the biggest reason that we haven't is because it's very hard to find the words for it, because OCD...
Everyone thinks of OCD as like hyper cleaning, and everyone's like, ooh, I wish I had that,
Yep.
Or they'll be like, oh, I can't move my remotes or controllers because I'm OCD. That's not what OCD is.
That is not what it is. A small portion of... There's so many different types, and it affects people a lot differently. And there are people that wash their hands over and over again to their skin being raw. That's real.
I do have a friend who has OCD, and she does clean a lot, and I just want her to know you're doing a great job. But that's also... I mean, it is, but it's not to the extent that... It's different, and it's not the same because it's not just cleaning. It's other things.
So OCD is obsessive compulsive behaviors, and
counting steps.
Yep.
My mother would count steps.
And it can be something that isn't quite used in the medical field as a term, but is used among people who have OCD. And pure O, it is for people whose obsessions and compulsions are mental, for the most part. And this also, you know, has things to do with like, and just for the record, OCD is something that you are born with. It is not something that you develop like BPD is. You are born with OCD. So I struggled with this my entire life and never knew what exactly it was.
Chemical imbalance? Is it a...
It's sort of a chemical imbalance. They're kind of not sure how to treat it. So it's kind of a mix of antidepressant, anti-anxieties, SSRIs, or whatever those are called, and also antipsychotics in some cases. And people who have OCD, they usually...
That's intense.
Yeah, and the prescriptions that are... All prescriptions have a certain FDA-approved level for like how high they can go.
Right.
And your person prescribing you, your doctor, your psychiatrist, whatever, they can go higher than that. And a lot of people with OCD, their meds are higher than they should be, what is considered FDA approved for safe. And my psychiatrist even told me that when they raise your prescriptions, they actually also make sure to do body checks for your heart to make sure that you don't have a heart attack.
Wow.
So
just to make sure you don't obsessively
do things.
Obsess over something.
Yep. And so
you can have a heart attack.
Yep.
From being calm.
Yeah. Because of the way that
that's kind of like how depression meds will make you calm enough to
kill yourself.
End your life. Okay, all right. You gotta stay alert.
Well, sometimes you've got to just be serious about it. But you know, I had one of the biggest things is that ever since I can remember, I had massively bad nightmares, and they were horrible, especially for a child to be having. I would have nightmares of like my family getting like eaten by like zombies in front of me.
Jeez.
And like I know it sounds a little funny, but for a child, that is so messed up to be having nightmares about.
So your ghost story, was that an OCD?
I don't know. And I'll probably never know. That ghost story that I told about in the other episode, I'll never know if it was something more or if it was one of my very first OCD attacks.
That would be an intense OCD attack.
Yeah, it's one of my very first core memories.
Wow.
But
shitty core memory.
Yeah. And I struggle with nightmares. Even into adulthood, I have nightmares like that. And my person growing up was my mom. When you have OCD, you get fixated on people as well, which sucks. But it was my mom. And I was always terrified that my mom was going to get abducted or raped or murdered. And I wouldn't ever leave her alone. We had to be together all the time. If I didn't know where she was at, she better have her phone on her so I can call her. And if I couldn't get a hold of her and she wasn't home when she said she was going to be home, it was the end of my universe. And I would immediately think that she was dead. And there was one time I remember that she went out to check the mail and she didn't take her phone and she decided to stop at a neighbor's house and talk to the neighbor. And she ended up being gone for about an hour. And I got so scared that I got my brother involved. And I convinced my brother that something horrible had to have happened to her. And we went up and down the streets looking for her because she didn't have her phone on her and we couldn't find her. We're freaking out, right? We're like, oh my God, do we need to call the freaking police? Like, where is our mother? And she was just across the street talking to a neighbor in their house. So insane. And, you know, my mom, I feel so bad for her now that I'm an adult, but she struggled really hard having a kid that had OCD. And she didn't even know what it was. And she tried desperately to get me help. But the problem was
did you see a child psychiatrist or
I did.
As well?
I had a therapist in school.
Samesies.
Yeah. And I have had therapy a few times in my life. I'm currently going to therapy. But it's been hard because I have to find a therapist that understands. And a lot of therapists don't understand OCD. They just don't. And even the one that I have now, as amazing as she is, she really only understands the BPD aspect of what is wrong with me and not the OCD. And the
BPD is easier to tackle.
It is, and it's more
even though it is like
it's just more well known.
But it is more of a mystery at the same time.
It is. Oh my God, yes.
And I guess it affects women more than men.
Yep.
Which would make sense. Women, no offense, are traumatized in a different way.
And men are most normally narcissists. Women can be too, but it's usually men. But
and the trauma doesn't have to just come from like dating a person or something like that.
Oh yeah, of course not.
It just comes from like my first abuser was a woman that I wasn't dating. She was my half sister.
Yep.
So that's where that started.
Yep. It can totally start itself in your family.
Yeah.
And
they think that it's partially that it could be family and it could also be trauma, but I don't have anybody in my family that has it. And my brother, I believe, might have BPD by the way that he acts. So obviously he's
BPD most commonly happens from childhood trauma.
Yeah, and we had not the same childhood trauma, but pretty similar.
You guys still had childhood trauma of your own.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna yeah. For me, I know it doesn't come from my family. I know that my mom is manic depressive,
Yeah.
but that's it.
BPD doesn't, to my knowledge, I don't think there's any history or evidence that BPD runs in the family, but of course they say that like depression and anxiety and addictive behaviors run in families, and
I think addictive behaviors can run in families, but I think it's also a learned behavior.
I think a lot of the things that people, or that the higher ups say, the doctors, a lot of those things that they say are hereditary are actually just learned from your environment. If you grow up having addictive parents, you're going to grow up in an environment where you see addiction every day, and you're either going to be someone who aspires to it, as sad as that is, or clings to that in memory of them, or saw the way that it affected them, and well, you want to feel the same way, or you want to understand why they chose their addiction over their own kid. There's so many different reasons, and that doesn't mean that it's hereditary. It's a learned behavior in your environment. And I'm not saying it's not hereditary. I'm just using that as an example.
I did a whole, as an adult, not as a child, so
Yeah.
I didn't, but as an adult, I wanted to put a whole thesis together, a whole statement, a whole
I've been there.
whatnot, and I wanted to do it on serial killers and the access of trauma. And
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, I want to say 9.5 times out of 10, it's environmental and not chemical.
Yep.
And the other part of it is, I want to say 5 out of 10, probably 6, maybe even 7, head trauma.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
But
not surprising.
It's head trauma. So I firmly believe that serial killers aren't born, although they can be. There can, some can be absolutely psychotic from, whatever chromosomes they pass on.
Psychopaths can be treated, though, if people took it seriously.
Yes.
When they showed warning signs as a youth.
Yes. And I just, and from that research, from doing that for I think I did it for about a year, which isn't that long, in comparison to other research. But
we also obsess over the things that we do, though.
Yeah. So it 9 times out of 10, it's a learned behavior. Very rarely is it not from a household. And 5, 6, maybe even 7, and I want to say 6 out of 10 is head trauma.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of trauma is head trauma. A lot of people who also have BPD have been have head
Knocked
trauma.
around a little bit.
Yeah, so, and just like football players, there's a thing, I forget what the acronym's in, but I think it's CTE or something like that. It's where they get hit in the head so much, by the time they're a certain age, it completely changes their behavior, and they do completely different
I've heard
things.
about that.
Yep.
I have actually heard about that. Yep.
Yep.
I read a study about it.
Yep, and, it really...
It matters, especially from a young age.
And you don't have to just be playing football to get the same head trauma. I've had at least 13 concussions. At least. And that sounds crazy, but it's the truth. I've had at least 13 concussions. And a few where I've bled from my head. And I just, I believe that in a weird way, there's positives to BPD. One is, I'm glad I have BPD, because if I wasn't, I'd probably be a serial killer. I'd probably be a serial killer. Yep, the cops are gonna come knocking on my door now, but I'd probably be a serial killer because BPD makes you more attentive and more what am I doing?
You feel
wrong?
your emotions 1,000 times more than other people.
Yeah, so in a weird way, I'm glad I have a special kind of trauma, so it can offset the head injury, so I didn't slash people off.
If you learn how to manage it, they can have a as horrible or weird as that sounds, they can have a positive effect on your life.
And my therapist did list off a bunch of things.
You're very loyal. That's number one.
Very intuitive.
Very, very.
That's another one. There are actually huge positives that other people won't have.
Yeah.
And we will feel more love than anyone else, and that kind of makes the intense pain okay. Because no one will love the way that we love. And no one will love each other the way that you love me, or I love you, or I love my son. And
that's kind of what makes it...
Or you love your sons.
That's kind of what makes it a little hard when it comes to having close bonds with people and having a favorite person that you're in a relationship with.
Because when it ends, it literally feels like someone's died.
it feels like you're dying. It feels like you're dying inside every day, and you try your best to find other things to fill your time. You try to put on this face that you're okay, but inside you just feel like so much gut-wrenching dread that you're dying. And it's like, in that pain, at least I know in my heart that this person that's not in my life anymore, I loved them more than a normal person could love. I have felt a once-in-a-lifetime kind of love for people.
Yeah.
And even though it's gone, I'm grateful that I had the chance.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I was able to experience that, even though it's gone. And that's something that it can be hard to find the positive in the negative. But when things are really, really dismal is when you've got to try the hardest to find that silver lining and keep going. Even if it's, the silver lining's a little depressing, grab onto it. You've got to find something to keep going.
Because the more you practice, the easier it's going to get.
Yep.
Even if you're not in a dismal spot.
And something I haven't talked about with OCD is that it's all like obsessive compulsive behaviors, right? And mine is mostly in my brain. There are certain things, certain tics that I have that as I've gotten older, I've been able to manage more myself, and they aren't as visible to everyday people. But for the most part, they're mental, and it's why I'm always mentally exhausted, because I'm counting and doing mental compulsions over obsessions that are in my brain. And one of those things is ruminations, and ruminations are a term for people who have OCD. It's something that they suffer with, and it's where everyone likes to spin a dialogue in their head about things, right? What could be, or what has been, or what could I do different, or...
But you do it all the time.
I do it all the time, and I can't stop. I can't stop it. And that's what makes them obsessive compulsive behaviors, is that most people, they just have these thoughts that come and go. Mine don't go. They stay. And it feels like they won't go away until I've analyzed it enough. And it gets to the point where I have to tell myself, no matter how much you go over the situation, it will not change. Yeah. The situation will not change. So spending 5 hours ruminating on something, not able to move,
it's just wasting your time.
And my mental capacity. It's draining and exhausting. And that's a whole part of it that people don't see, that I don't talk about. And there's also ROCD, which is romantic OCD. And it's a subcategory of OCD. And mostly people that suffer from OCD, when they have a significant other, they also suffer from ROCD, which is just like favorite personing for BPD. So
you got it twice as hard.
When I favorite person someone, I also develop ROCD for them, which it can be different for different people. Commonly, it's usually being flooded with like feelings and thoughts of like, I don't really love this person. I can't spend the rest of my life with this person. They did this thing. They can't really love me. And on my end, or it'll even be like, I can't love this person. But on my end, because of my BPD, it is the other way around. And it makes me think, this person could never love me. This person is lying to me. This person has this great big grand scheme to ruin my life and manipulate me.
Well, that's also you protecting yourself, though.
It's also part of PTSD.
Yeah, it's a trauma response.
And it makes it impossible.
Well, I think we've both done great, and I think recently you've done even better than I have ever done, or will probably ever do.
Well, there's still time.
Don't do drugs, and you're not allowed to buy a gun. So you'll be safe. You'll be fine.
Wait, don't do drugs.
you don't. I know you're fine, because we don't got the money for that. So I know you're fine.
I make jokes about drugs, but I don't do drugs.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it up. This was a little longer just because it's our first video.
Yep.
It is.
And we touched on some sensitive topics that, honestly, we could have 30-minute episodes just talking about BPD or OCD. So this is a blessing, y'all.
It's a blessing to see our faces. So we will maybe record a few more while we have the setup here, so that way we don't miss anything. And even if it is a holiday, that way we can post them.
Yeah, we won't do it again.
Yeah, we won't do it again. This time was special. Gotta celebrate
nothing.
The nothingness. Yeah, I was about to say the nothingness of America. At least currently.
Yeah.
We might get
We're
better.
taking too long to sign off. Bye,
Bye,
y'all.
y'all.